What is going on, guys? So in today's video, I want to talk about these science behind vertical jump improvements. Just a quick overview of what it would really take to take your vertical jump to the next level and the different pillars in vertical jump improvements that I personally use with my clients to improve their vertical jumps. So with that being said, let's dive straight into it. So pillar one is force production, is strength. So obviously, if we want to jump higher, we need to be able to produce more force. And more force into the ground means that we can actually push off harder, we can jump higher. So stronger legs means that you can jump higher. However, just being strong enough is not enough, and I'll come back to that in another pillar. But being able to produce force is extremely important. So the key areas for vertical jump are your glutes, your quads, and your hamstrings. So those are the big muscle groups that we really need to focus on, that we need to get stronger if we want to have enough force to jump higher. Some of my favorite lifts to actually, get stronger, main lifts, compound lifts, are squats. So I love back squats, front squats. Tri-bar deadlifts are great. Split squats are great. I see that's not showing here. Split squats. Obviously, we need to have a combination of everything. It's you can't just say I'm just going to do squats and I'm going to start jumping higher. No, but these are some of the lifts that I use. Then again, just doing these lifts is not enough. Like, you need to have accessory work. There's a lot more that goes into it, but the main idea is the same. We need to be able to produce more force, and we need to be able to get stronger. So if we want to be stronger, what do we need to do? We need to do these lifts at very high intensities but lower volumes. So somewhere from 3 to 5 sets, and then somewhere from 3 to 6 reps. That would be an ideal rep range and set range to work on strength with these type of lifts, to make sure that we increase strength in the glutes, the quads, and the hamstrings. Also your calves, the lower legs, really important. But in terms of like pure force production, we really need to get stronger in these three main muscle groups. Okay, so that is pillar number one. And then pillar number two kind of goes hand in hand with this. So like I said, just producing enough force is not enough. Okay, otherwise, a power lifter that squats 300 kilos, he would be the highest jumper in the world, and that is not the case at all. Besides being able to produce force, we need to be able to produce force very rapidly. So RFD, explosiveness, is rate of force development. How fast can we produce a certain amount of force, right? So now it's not only how fast can we squat 100 kilos, or like how, my bad. It's not just can we squat 100 kilos, it's also how fast can we squat 100 kilos, right? So besides the force, it's about how fast we can do this. Strength is how much, explosiveness is how quickly. So a couple things that I really like to do in terms of like increasing explosiveness are plyometrics, obviously, depth jumps, approach jumps, med ball throws, also like Olympic lifts, weighted jumps, things that convert strength into power, right? How fast can we move something? So Olympic lifts, for example, actually I'll put it right here. Olympic lifts are great as well. So how fast can we move this bar? So rather than just how much weight can we put on it, how fast can we use it? So there's also velocity meters, for example, that you can use to really measure how fast your bar speed is. RFD, rate of force development, extremely important if you want to jump higher. And it's really important to understand this, right? So we can, if we have a force velocity curve, right? Actually, give me 1 second. Okay, so I had to get the force velocity curve here for a second to show you guys. But basically, the force velocity curve explains the relationship between force and velocity being produced. So if we only would train max strength, we'd be here where the power lifter is, right? If we only train speed, we would be over here. So we'd be really fast, but we wouldn't really be producing a lot of force. So now with RFD, explosiveness, we would be somewhere here in the middle. Strength speed or speed strength, right? And basically what we want to do is if we want to be as explosive as possible, whether it's for jumping or sprinting, whatever it might be, we need to be able to produce as much force as possible in as little time as possible. So it's not just about training over here in this area, like with the strength training, like with the first pillar. It's also not just about just jumping or just sprinting, because then we would be all the way here, be really fast with little force. But it's also about training in the middle. And RFD, training explosiveness, is this middle area. So if we want to jump as high as possible, it's important to train all along this force velocity curve. Now, number three, something else that is really important when it comes to jump training, and something that I personally think is overlooked quite a lot, is efficiency. And efficiency consists out of two things. So talks about technique. Technique is extremely important if we talk about jumping higher. For example, if we want to be a better dunker, like we want to dunk a basketball, right? It is important that we understand the technique of jumping in a certain way to dunk a basketball. If we want to jump higher in high jump, then the technique is very different. And technique talks about a lot of things. Talk about arm swing, about the timing of your jump. Are you going to do a 1 foot jump, a 2 foot jump? How long is the penultimate step going to be? So the last step going into your jump. All these things really matter. So is it a fast dip? Is it a very little dip? If you're a 1 foot jumper, for example, all these things matter. And studying technique is extremely important. For example, football players, right? Soccer players, like they call them in America. Soccer players. If you would tell a soccer player to touch a basketball rim, he would jump in a certain way. He would run and then he would stop and jump off 2 feet like this, right? Like a spring. That is not ideal in basketball. That is not ideal if you're trying to dunk a basketball. That would not be ideal if you're a volleyball player, for example. That is a very different technique. That's something that works in soccer, but that does not work in basketball. So no matter how fast or how strong I get this athlete, no matter if I actually improve his rate of force development, it doesn't matter because the technique is not there for the certain task that we're trying to achieve. It does work in soccer, and he will be jumping higher in soccer, no question, no question asked. But to do a certain task, we need to understand the technique that it takes, and that is extremely important, especially if we're trying to talk about efficiency. Now, the second part about efficiency are tendons. Okay, tendons are what connects your bones to your muscles. So if we want to move our bones, we need to be able to have strong muscles, obviously, but we also need to make sure that these tendons store and release the right amount of energy that we actually want from the muscles. So therefore, it's not only important for injury prevention, right? Because tendons can get overloaded and they can have tendonitis, inflammation of the tendon, but it's also important to be extremely stiff. So therefore, they can release and store a lot of energy, right? So we need to also train our tendons and not just our muscles. Muscles are important, but tendons are almost as important, I would say, right? So there's a lot of different techniques that we can use to train our tendons. The stretch shortening cycle is a great example. So also plies, for example, they also train that capacity of your tendons. But being efficient in tendon training is also really important, and therefore it's a part of pillar number 3, efficiency. Okay, so these are the main 3 pillars, right? Force, rate of force development, and efficiency with technique and tendons. So what are some action steps that you can take to improve your vertical jump? First of all, build strength foundation. Chances are that you're not strong enough. Chances are very high that you're not strong enough. If you can squat 1 time your body weight and you think that's sufficient, it's not. I promise you, it's not. Very little amount of athletes are actually strong enough, and there is a point where it's almost not worth it to get much stronger. But I promise you, 99% of you guys are not at that point or not even close. Okay, so it takes years to build this foundation. It takes a long time. So get stronger in the main lifts that I just said. So like single leg strength, trap bar deadlifts, back squats, front squats, RDLs. Get strong. You cannot get strong enough. You can, but you're probably not there. Secondly, add 2 to 3 explosive sessions per week. So jump. If jumping is what you're trying to do, you need to jump. Jump at least 2-3 times a week. Obviously don't jump for hours. Jump for like 30 minutes. Track how many jumps you do to get a good idea on your total weekly volume. But jump. If jumping is what you want to do, you need to do it. Okay. Thirdly, practice this jumping technique. Film yourself. Record yourself. Look at the highest jumpers in the world, see how they jump, see how you jump, and see if there's little nuances that you see different with yourself. Okay, it's like trying to shoot a basketball, right? So if you're trying to shoot a basketball, Technique is so important. It's not just about how far you can throw the ball or how high you can throw it. No, it's about technique. Same with jumping. Okay. Track your jump every 7 days. So find a way to measure your jumping, whether that's on an app, a Vertic, four plates, or maybe you're just tracking it on a wall where you also always have like a reference point and you try to touch it, but track it every 7 days. It's normal that, for example, if you go through certain strength phases, that it's not always going to be as high, but it's important that we track it every 7 days to actually see what the curve is over longer periods of time. Okay, so dips are normal. It's also normal to be more fatigued and stuff. So your jump will go down if you train good. Okay, but in the long term, it should be going up. And then lastly, and really not the least important, is prioritize your sleep and nutrition. Okay, also body composition obviously will play a big role in jumping higher. Right, if you want to jump higher, you want to be as strong as possible compared to your body weight, so relative to your body weight. If you're fat, if you have too much body fat, you're not going to jump as high as you possibly can, because I have this saying that fat don't fly, and it's not a lie. The best jumpers in the world, the best sprinters in the world, the most explosive, the fastest people in the world, they're very, very lean. So therefore, you also should be lean. You should prioritize your sleep and your nutrition. Okay. And then some of the common mistakes that I see with vertical jump are slow counter movements. So in terms of jump technique, you see some really slow counter movements, poor posture, knee position. With jumping, like I said, again, record yourself compared to your old jumps, compared to the best jumpers in the world. Like whatever you're trying to achieve, try to compare yourself to people that are where you want to be. Okay. Another one is only lifting or only doing plyos. Again, that goes back to the force velocity curve. If you only train one of these on this curve, not good. We need to train the whole curve. Okay. And then obviously overtraining. A lot of athletes, if they want to jump higher, they will jump so much that they will overtrain, have bad recovery on top of that, some bad sleep, some bad nutrition. It will only lead to injury. So be careful. Like I said, track how many jumps you do every week. Don't increase it by more than 10% weekly. So if you're doing 100 jumps, don't go from 100 to 200. That's too much. Your body will react in a way that's not the way you want it to be. And then lastly, inconsistent technique practice. If you're trying to jump and you're trying to jump higher, make sure that every single jump that you do is with good technique. Even if your technique is not perfect yet, try at least, right? But stop practicing with inconsistent technique. Okay. So shortly, this was a short video about the science behind vertical jump, how I try to improve different pillars of vertical jump for my athletes. And I'll see you guys in the next video.